Travers, ABC News White House correspondent. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning. The White House is calling it more of a second conversation, that it wasn't a secret. This was at a dinner with other world leaders. We actually saw some video of the beginning of that dinner, so we knew that the First Lady was sitting next to Vladimir Putin. At some point during this dinner, which lasted about 3.5 hours, the president talked to Vladimir Putin. Now, things that are raising some eyebrows are the president was sitting next to the Japanese prime minister for this dinner. So he had a Japanese translator, not a Russian translator. So when he went and had this chat, it was the Russian president's translator that was the go-between. Some concerns about this are, what if that was misrepresented from both sides? And also just the fact of having a conversation with somebody like Vladimir Putin off the cuff, not having talking points, not having staff there too, could end up being worrisome or problematic.
So it was an hour-long conversation?
The White House says it was not. It was a brief conversation, but not putting a time frame on it. This information was coming from someone who says he heard secondhand from attendees who thought this was an unusual conversation, and he was told secondhand that it lasted an hour, but it was in full view of everyone at the dinner. The White House still says it was brief. It wasn't that long.
So, but reports are that it was an hour. So there's a discrepancy. Reports are is an hour. The White House saying much shorter than that. I mean, and I don't mean to parse words with the White House, but is much shorter 50 minutes or is much shorter 5 minutes?
We don't know. But I think you can say that the whole dinner was just over 3 hours. The idea that the two of them will be sitting for an hour in full view of other world leaders talking seems a little strange.
Yeah. And what about insulting the guest you're sitting next to, right? You're going to leave that seat for an hour? I mean,
right? Sorry, Prime Minister Abe. I've got other people to talk to.
I mean, that's sort of 101 high school prom, right? You don't leave your date for an hour to go talk to somebody else.
Yeah, or like the person you're sitting next to at a wedding.
Right.
Like, I'll be back. I'm going to mingle for a while, and I'll see you for dessert.
Right. But the timeline, I think, is important on this because an hour raises eyebrows.
Yeah, it certainly does.
5 minutes doesn't.
Right. 5 minutes could be pleasantries. Even 25 minutes could be, wrapping up what had been discussed at the whole summit and just other issues. An hour, you would assume, gets in depth, but the White House not saying what was discussed.
The other foreign leaders, it's reported, they looked at this oddly for the length and the actions of the two.
That's the report from one person who says he's hearing that secondhand. But yes, that they thought it was unusual that conversation was happening.
Yeah. Karen Travers, fallout from the healthcare debate. Any fallout from the people who sent them there? The White House worried about the Tea Party reaction to them wanting to repeal and saying that was their singular focus and now not being able to do it?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of concerns over what this is going to mean. The president's point is that this was what they were promising when they were out on the campaign trail. They need to keep this promise. So the president's bringing all Republican senators, he's invited all Republican senators to the White House today for lunch, saying this is one last chance to try and change some minds, and that the White House still thinks they could come up with a way forward, that they're not done yet on health care. But effectively, this latest health care overhaul seems dead. The president was really on the sidelines for this last legislative push. He had a couple tweets, he had a couple meetings here at the White House behind closed doors with Leg Affairs teams, but he wasn't doing that big round of meetings with members of Congress like we saw with the House effort a couple months ago. And it's unclear then how, one lunch he can change these minds that are really firmly entrenched with opposition to this for a variety of different reasons. Mike Lee and Jerry Moran are opposed for one thing, Rand Paul for something, compared to Susan Collins, a completely different thing. So to try and bridge all of that is really, really hard, as we've seen over the past couple months.
Karen Travers, ABC News White House correspondent, never a dull moment. Thanks for checking in. 6:57.